All right, let's get into our first discussion now. Though the inflation rate in Nigeria has continuously dropped since January 2017, the rate is still significantly above the accepted thresholds of 12% maximum for when inflation begins to adversely affect economic growth.
Indeed. Well, the National Bureau of Statistics, Nigeria's data agency, says annual inflation in Nigeria has eased for the 6th straight month in July, inching down marginally to 16.05%. But it seems that you have more for us.
Yeah, I have more. I have more. But let's bring our guest in here before I take you guys to my wall to have a better understanding of this. We have with us in the studio financial analyst Nemeka Obiari. He is here with us. Nemeka, good morning.
Good morning, Mike.
Nice to see you. Really, you've been traveling the whole world. I know. But it's nice to have you in the country.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Now, I wonder what the government is really doing differently, because I remember at the peak of this inflation, you were here, we were analyzing the issues, the recession and all of that. But now the inflation seems to be going down. But what is government really doing that is bringing down the inflation rate? Let me start from that before we...
Okay, Mike, like I pointed out the last time I was here in the studio, our inflation spiral, the inflation rate we have in Nigeria is caused because of the issues that we have in the foreign exchange market. Remember that Nigeria is an import-dependent economy. Most of the things we consume here are imported. Most of our economy is an import-dependent economy. And over the last 2 years, especially before June 2016, you discover that we had so much instability in the foreign exchange market. Because of that instability in the foreign exchange market, it affected a lot of things. Most of the things that we use here are imported. Our major energy source, the refined petroleum product, both the diesel and the PMS, we all import a bulk of everything that we consume here. Now, but if you look at what has happened over the last 1 year, the central bank has been able to bring some level of stability in the foreign exchange market. You know, there was a time, as of February this year, it was at about 525 naira to $1. Today, there has been a bit of stability. It has been between 360 naira to 370 naira for $1. And that level of stability is what we are seeing. Like I mentioned earlier, everything, we are a very import-dependent economy. And anything that happens in the foreign exchange market has a way of cutting across the whole ecosystem. From transport to infrastructure to consumables, everybody will have to adjust prices because it will practically affect everything. But if we are to be an export-oriented economy, in a situation where our currency is devalued, it will be an advantage because it will make our export cheaper. So what we have seen now is like an elixir. The central bank, as much as possible, have tried to maintain stability in the foreign exchange market. But over time, like I pointed out, we need to see a lot of work in the fiscal side. We need to see them taking further steps to diversify the economy. Like you noticed yesterday, the commander-in-chief gave a marching order to the finance minister, to the CBN governor, and the national planning minister, Udo Doma, for them to do more to reposition our economy. We can do a lot. The headline inflation has come down marginally from 16.10% to 16.05%. But food inflation has gone up. It has hit the 8-year high since 2009. From 19.9 to 20.20%. And you ask yourself, it's because of the inflation spiral on this area that is affecting the overall inflation rate in Nigeria. What are we doing? And somebody will ask you, why is food so high? Why are food prices, even the common commodities that we can produce, like the gari, the staple foods, the yam? Now it also boils down to the same thing that we're talking about. The cost of storage of these products when they are produced is high because there is no power infrastructure. You have to buy diesel to power the storage facilities. The cost of transport is also very, very high because a liter of the AGO, that is diesel, is 166 naira. Unlike in 2015 when it was about 92, 91 naira. So the farmer must also factor in the cost of transporting that goods from the hinterlands to the urban areas. You must also factor in the cost of storage and also the issue of production. We are still paying lip service to the issue of farming. Remember that in this country, as between 1963 to 1966, when we had a diversified economy, when we had a fiscal structure that allowed for resource control, that allowed for autonomies for the constituent units, we had the groundnut pyramid of the north, we had the cotton of the north, we had the palm oil produce of the southeast. As at that particular time in 1964, Mike, Nigeria had control of 45% of the crude palm oil market.
All right.
If we had sustained that pace, by now we'll have been earning between $20 to $30 billion from that sales.
Even President Muhammadu Buhari just complained a few days ago about cocoa exportation in Nigeria dwindling. So from your analysis so far, it seems that nothing the government can do would make food prices crash, especially at the shortest period of time.
No, like I said, we are paying lip service to our diversification program. We are paying lip service to our Go to Farm program. I will give you this. Akinwumi Adesina, the current president of African Development Bank, when he was the Minister for Agriculture, you could actually see you cannot reinvent the wheel. There is no rocket science about this. He had a scientific approach to all this. Before he became the Minister for Agriculture, we used to have the fertilizer racketeering in the Federal Ministry of Agriculture. He stopped it. That was the greatest Ponzi scheme, one of the avenues for slush fund in Nigeria. The guy came through his e-wallet system, scientific ways. He provided solution to that over 3-decade problem that we used to have before he became the minister. You could see his agri programs, transformation programs. On the right side, you could see scientifically how he was trying as much as possible to provide scientific approach to tackling this issue, to reduce our our over dependence on imported rice. Now, it's not just enough to pay lip service. If we say we want to reduce food import in Nigeria by say 50%, we want to reduce it by 80%, there must be clear-cut scientific mechanisms. There must be clear-cut defined program timeline. You must say, okay, by 2018, by 2019, this is what we are going to achieve. How are we going to achieve it? It's not enough to say we want to export $5 billion worth of yam in 2018. How do you intend to achieve it? Where are the land that you are going to use? Who are your technical partners? Under what private-public platforms are you going to do it? The governors control the land. How are you having a handshake across the board with the local government chairman, with the governors, and with every stakeholder to achieve this?
Even the market to which you're going to sell.
There must be clear cut. When Akinwumi was around, you could see clearly where he was going to. You cannot have a target without the house, the when, and the resources that will be used to achieve it.
The President Minister now is trying to promote agriculture in his own way. At least Nigeria is now exporting yam. Isn't that...
Nnameka, before you answer that, let me take you to the wall. Because the point there is, when you talk about the exportation of yam, a lot of Nigerians really feel... is that really what we should do now? It's welcome anyway, but the way it is done, I wonder if a lot of farmers are carried along. Let's get to my wall to have an understanding of what we are doing here. We need to really break this down. We're talking about the issues of food prices in the country. The inflation rate has been dropping since January. January was at all-time high of 18.72%. And if we fast forward to about June this year, it got down to 16.10%, and in July 16.05%. So it keeps going down, and this is and the acceptable threshold worldwide is at least where you say you are safe is 12%. So we're really still far ahead of that. Let's move ahead. All right. Now, this is how the National Bureau of Statistics noted that the food index increased by 20.28% in July, up by 0.37% from 19.91%, and that's in June, representing the highest year-on-year increase in food inflation since 2009 series, and that is what our guest said that earlier on. Now, further analysis showed that the rise in index was caused by increase in prices of bread, cereal, meat, fish, and even yam. And these are very common things that people eat and in the households every single day. Potato, yam tubers, vegetables, and all of that. All of those prices are still on the high. Now let's move on to seeing other issues in here. Now, TVC Breakfast crew recently went on a market survey and sampled current food prices at the Mile 12 market. Here are some of our findings. Now, a 50 kilograms bag of brown beans used to be 17,000 naira in May, but in July, it went up to 17,500, so it's about 500 naira increase. The white beans is a little different from it, and the 50 kilograms of white beans sold for 16,500 in May, but they sold for 17,000 in July. Now in flour, 50 kilograms of a bag of flour sold for 11,200 in May and 11,500 in July, and that's about a 300 naira increase. Now, if we move on to other food in there, rice, 50 kilograms bag of rice sold for between about 16,500 in May and then 16,500. So it kind of maintained or sustained the price level. Now, this is really a decline from early in January when it was selling for about 23,000 and 22,000 naira per bag. Now, if we go to yellow gari, the 50 kilograms bag of yellow gari is sold for about 18,000 naira in May and 18,500 in July. Now, the difference in gari is that the bags are bigger than the rice. So someone would ask, how would gari be more expensive than rice? But the measurement in bags of gari is usually bigger than that of rice. If we move ahead now, a basket of tomatoes sold for about 6,000 naira in May and went up to 8,000 naira in July. That's about 2,000 naira increase. Now, for yams, a real strong tuber of yam from maybe Nasarawa or Benue or Plateau or Kogi State sold for about 700 naira in May and 1,000 naira, and sometimes even more than 1,000 here and there based on how other indices considered, 1,000 in July. So these are some of the prices, and it's on the backdrop of this that the central bank governor, Godwin Emefiele, has warned that the economy could slip back into a protracted recession if all necessary fiscal steps are not activated immediately. Now, the CBN scribe urged the federal government to speedily implement the 2017 budget and start capital expenditure spending as a way of reflating the economy in a way that will impact Nigerians. That's, well, Nemeka, the issue of central bank governor is right. Talking about we need to take steps right now, otherwise Nigeria is going to slip back into protracted illness and protracted inflation, and the situation could get worse. Now, if one way or the other, the central bank, the government has been able to improve on inflation, what is that extra step that the government needs to take that he is warning?
I will give you an example. Okay. I agree with Emefiele, 100%. I align with his view, 100%. I've maintained it until we kickstart activities scientifically, optimally in the fiscal side. We'll be wasting our time. I'll give you a typical illustration. I hope time will permit me. In my state, Imo State, in February, I think around May this year, the government of Imo State doled out 710 million naira as a way of empowering people. They gave out 1 million naira to 305 youths in 205 electoral wards in the state, and gave out 100,000 naira each to 10 women in each electoral ward, totaling 710 million as a way of empowerment. And they created people they call mentees, political office holders, mentors, who do not have any experience whatsoever, by way of entrepreneurial training or fund management. 710 million empowerment, and I can tell you half of that money will go even down the drain if within 2 weeks of receiving that money, because these guys, there was no explanation of how they were trained, no vocational training or whatever. They just do that, pick people and dash that money. But do you know what I will have done if I am in the position of the governor or his commissioner for agriculture with 710 million? I will give you an example. We mentioned gari here. A bag of gari is 18,000 naira, up from about 6,000 naira in 2015. What does it take to cultivate gari? Imo State has a land mass of 5,530 square kilometers, which is 553,000 hectares. A hectare of cassava farm will yield about 15 metric tons of cassava tubers. What will I have done? We have 27 local government areas. Out of these 27 local government areas, the same youths you gave these monies, the same people, if you check the numbers, about 3,000 people, you can put them into cooperatives, provide them with sound training. Government controls the land. Provide them with hectares of land. For every local government area, provide 480 hectares of land. Form them into 3 groups. To set up a Gari processing plant will take about 5 to 7 million naira, and they are all fabricated here in Nigeria. From Onitsha to Aba, you have some of the best technologies, better than what is imported from China. Processing plants, a 2 metric ton processing plant a day capacity Gari plant. That is, we're talking about 2 metric tons means 2 metric tons times 1,000 is about 2,000 kg of Gari. We're talking about 40 bags of Gari every day. We're talking about 40, even if we use conservatively 10,000 naira, we're talking about 40 times that. We're talking about 400,000 naira income every day. What would they do? For each and every one of them, we have agencies like the African Agriculture Foundation Technology, and you said Ogun State is doing it. People wonder why Ogun State has the second highest IGR after Lagos, 79 billion. Kwara State is doing it. But some other states are not emulating what these other ones are. You cannot invent the way. For every hectare of land, for each of them, if you look at it, 480 hectares of land on the 27 kilometer will give you 12,960 hectares of land. Will give you about, if you multiply it, if each of them is producing about 15 metric ton per hectare, you will have 12,960 metric ton of cassava tubers. By the time you analyze it, going through that 710 million will be enough to set up these plants, set up these farms, run it. By the end of 1 year, you'll be having about 11 million bags of Gari. 11 million bags of Gari multiplied by conservative, not 18 naira, 18 naira, 10 naira, will give you 11.8 billion cumulative. Jobs will have been created. Economy will have been boosted. There will have been taxable income for government to raise more money.
And that is just from one state.
Just one. And I can tell you this. I ask myself this question. If you say you want to reduce, Nigeria consumes a lot of cassava. To produce ethanol alone, we have ethanol plants in Nigeria. Do not have sufficient. In your studio, I saw a news item, an ethanol factory that has 225 metric ton capacity per day, but they could not get up to 65 because of the lack of supply. Even the tuber has moved up from 20,000 per metric ton to 40,000.
Now,
if we say we want to focus on the fiscal side, if government say, okay, today we want to produce 400 million metric tons of tubers, we want to produce 130 million metric tons of Gari, full sufficiency, which will bring down the price. How many hectares of land are we supposed to cultivate? How are we going to provide that land? How do we put our youths into work? Put them into cooperatives, provide them with training. How do we pull together funding in a way that it will be able to mechanize the agriculture and produce food and also grow the economy? We can replicate this in every sector. This is a scientific. You can determine what you want to do in 2 years.
Well, Emeka, all these are possible, really, if only Nigeria is not focused on crude oil exploration in the country now. Apart from the issues, really, it seems the purchasing behavior of Nigerians is contributing to the rise in prices of foodstuff because many of them have sophisticated taste buds. They prefer imported products to locally made ones. What do you have to say?
I will tell you this. Nigerians prefer imported products, according to you, because of the issue of quality. You see, once you have production that is qualitative, that is competitive, people will patronize you. I'll give you an example. There used to be a time, remember there used to be a time in Nigeria when people prefer imported juices, imported Five Alive, imported food juice. Today, every Nigerian drinks Chivita. Chivita is produced here in Nigeria. Chivita is of higher quality than most of the junks that we import from abroad. Nobody will tell you, if you put Chivita on the table and put the other imported juice or food drinks on the table, the average Nigerian will prefer Chivita. The same thing with Indomie. These are locally produced goods. Nigerians are not averse to taking what is produced here. But the question is, how do we harness the latent talents that we have here to even provide them with the same technology that we have offshore, the same infrastructure, the same support that will enable them to produce competitively? If you go to Aba, made in Aba goods are very, very good. Made in Aba shoes, made in Aba bags, made in Aba leather. These guys are highly skilled artisans. But the major challenges that they have is the issue of having the right technology, having the right government support and incentive, having the right infrastructure to support that, and which Okezie Ikpeazu is trying a lot to do. But there is a limit to what Okezie Ikpeazu can do as a governor. I expect the federal government of Nigeria to also come in and support, and which they are trying to do. I gave an illustration here. In Nigeria, prior to the government of Okezie Ikpeazu, or even this government, we used to import over 4 billion naira worth of shoes and boots from Pakistan for our military, for our police, for our navy, for our air force. Do you know what it can cost, how it can support this local? If Nigeria says, okay, going forward, every boot, every fabric, every belt that will be worn by the military must be produced here in Nigeria.
And it seems it boils down to political will.
Political will. And now, if you want to produce those things as qualitative as the ones that is produced in Pakistan, what stops you from bringing the Pakistani company that is producing those things in Pakistan, give them the right incentive, pay them with the local artisans here.
The company established here.
Provide them with what we call take or pay contract. Whatever you produce, we will buy. Give them the land, give them the incentives, tax incentives, help them to bring the equipment, guarantee them return on their investment, whatever return that is due to them. If they invest 40% equity, you must make sure that they repatriate their returns as and when due. They will bring technology here. They will set up the machines here. The consumption is here, because if we don't buy those products, they cannot produce here. So if they have the right incentives to set up those things here and produce here, they will be transferring technology. The same thing can be replicated across board in the different sectors of the economy. We import Vietnam alone. If I tell you how much Vietnam makes exporting cassava chips, it's over $5 billion. We are not doing it. We used to be the highest producer of cocoa in the whole of West Africa. In the whole of Africa. Today, Cote d'Ivoire has taken the lead on that. Cote d'Ivoire exports over $5 billion worth of cocoa every year. But they've looked back and asked themselves, hey, what are we even doing? Exporting raw material, not even processing it. The market for cheese and the chocolate is over $98 billion. So what they did now was that to liaise with those companies that produce those chocolates abroad to come and set up factory in Cote d'Ivoire, so that whatever you produce in Cote d'Ivoire is consumed in Cote d'Ivoire. The cost of setting it up is cheaper. There's a market for you, and you can reach out the whole West African countries. It will be cheaper to import from Cote d'Ivoire than to import from Netherlands or to import from America. These things are no rocket science. These things are the kind of things that we can replicate. But the major problem we have is that we are so fixated with politics. We are so fixated with clannishness. When we want to we put square pegs in round holes. People that do not even understand left and right of what it takes to run the ministries. Do you know what it will take if the president says to the Minister of Agriculture, I want to stop rice importation in Nigeria in the next 3 years. Give me your road map, your road plan on how this will be achieved. How many hectares of land?
All of those road maps, they've already had those targets.
The target will be measured. Every month, every 2 months.
There's a target really for December.
The problem we have in the public sector, I will give you this. In the private sector, if I employ you in my bank, you come on the day of interview, I tell you this is what you're supposed to achieve as target. If after 6 months, you don't achieve it, I will confirm you. I will fire you and cut my loss. But in the public sector, there is no culture of hiring and firing. Once somebody enters into the public sector, he knows that it is still retirement. Whether he comes to work or he does not come to work. There is no yardstick. There's not like what weekly, monthly, quarterly appraisal. In the bank, if a bank employs you as an MD CEO, the board will employ you. They will give you a target where they want to take to the bank in the next 1 year. If after 6 months and 1 year, they will fire you.
Now that President Buhari has given a new task to the economic team, it's now that they must fast-track efforts to take Nigeria out of recession. What should he be looking at, and what should be the focus of the team at this time?
I'll give you an example. In the Economic Recovery Growth Plan that was launched 4 months ago, one of the highlights of that plan was that we are going to have 2 million housing units between now and 2020. And we are going to set up a family finance fund of about 1 trillion naira. Let me tell you, to build 2 million houses from now till 2020 will take at least, conservatively, even if you're doing 2-bedroom flats, about 10 to 15 trillion naira. Now, 5 months after, Fashola has not told us how he intends to achieve 2 million housing units from now till 2020. We do not have a clear-cut understanding of the dynamics, the when, the what is required, and how it will be done.
And even where.
Under what structures. By the Land Use Act of Nigeria, the lands also belong to state governors. How are we going? See, let me tell you, it is not scary. We can actually build 2 million houses in 3 years. But it is not just enough to come on air, say it, drop it, we want to do this, we want to do that. See, there must be yardsticks for measurement. When a man has any target that is not measurable, that is not implementable, that is not sanctionable, until we get to that level where there is accountability, where people are sanctioned for not performing what they're supposed to do. Who are the people that are supposed to drive our policies in the ministry and department agencies? They are human beings that are employed there. From NIPC to all the agencies. If we say this is what we want to do, in 2015 we say we're going to repair the refineries and make the refineries work. That we want to by 2018 we're going to reduce imports by 60%. From then till now, what has happened? Our refineries producing optimally. Why are those refineries producing optimally 2 years after? How long does it even take to do a turnaround maintenance program on a refinery? To build a new refinery will take between 3 to 4 years. And we keep on hearing things. They say they want to do co-location, get private sector concessionaires who will take the old refineries and then fix it and then co-locate new ones. How far have we gone? The other day we heard that Orlando Vitol Energy Group was working with NNPC. When was the bid process organized? How transparent was it? These are the kind of things we see. Nigeria is a beautiful economy. Nigeria is an economy that has the deepest potentials. If you look at our demographics, if we look at our numbers, the Nigerian economy ticks the right boxes for these iron investors. But we must put the right incentives, put the round pegs in round holes, put the right people in that place. And then there must be sanction grid for non-performance. We cannot continue to hire political office holders and put people in MDAs who do not understand what passion and target is.
All right. We have to leave it here now. We'll take it. There has to be targets. There has to be sanctions if you don't meet the targets.
The
there
carrot
has to be
and the stick.
The carrot and the stick if necessary, but one way or the other, understandable targets have to be specified. Nnameka Obiareri, thank you very much for coming on the program. Thank you so much. Right. Let's go on a break briefly, and then we go ahead with the next discussion. Stay with us.